This is my basalt set. So in the top here, we've got a blend of my basalt with granite, and my granite base I've got 20% lime added to. So this here is with just 5% basalt with 95 of the granite lime mix. And then we go 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So at this end, we got 50-50 basalt with the granite and lime. And then reduction oxidation soda. So there's some, you can see the effect of the basalt on the granite. Takes a little while to get enough percent to make a dark glaze. Kind of into this zone, like 25% basalt, and 35%. I think there's definitely some interest here. This is kind of like, it might be a good basis for a temaku. Interestingly, it looked really pretty good in oxidation. You get more blacks in oxidation than you do in reduction. And then in soda, which is typical in soda, you kind of can get some of this like greenish spotting happening. It's like kind of like varies between sort of this kind of browny purple and green. And you can, once you get more basalt in it, you're more in the just kind of like matte metallic purple kind of zone. So then this is the same set of tests, but with 4% iron added. And we've got oxidation reduction soda. So the iron tends to get you to the temakui place before. So this is pretty nice, 776. So this has got just 20% basalt, but 4% iron. I think this is the one that I'm gonna run with and try and do tests around. And then, it could also be nice in the soda. This, I like these little black spots that are happening. And you can see where we get soda, heavy soda on the left-hand side, you get that kind of like greenish yellow. So yeah, there's definitely potential here. I'm pretty happy. My previous test with basalt didn't have the lime added, and that really helped, like that extra flux really helped the color response. All right, here's the wollastonite set. So this was a real win. The wollastonite fluxes the granite in a really nice way. This is the bluest and clearest translucent celadon that I've found. I don't like it so much where I add the iron, but in soda it could be kind of nice. It's a bit dark, but it might be nice. That's with 4% iron. This is just, the soda makes it kind of a little cloudier and a little bit darker. But in oxidation, obviously, we're kind of more yellowy, but really nice bright blue. And as we add more wollastonite, the crazing gets smaller and the glaze gets a little bit more matte, but not much. Like compared to lime, that effect is much less, because with wollastonite we're adding silica as well as calcium. So yeah, the wollastonite was definitely a big win. I will do further experimentation. I think this is kind of my flux of choice for the granite. This is our lime set. So this was pretty good too. It's pretty similar to wollastonite, but a little bit greener as opposed to the bluer wollastonite ones. I've used lime as a flux a lot. Interestingly, compared to the wollastonite, we get to a more satiny matte finish sooner. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 20%, we're already getting some satiny feel. 25 for sure. And then by the time we get up to 50%, it's really, you know, pretty dry. I don't actually mind this in the oxidation. I think this is kind of nice. It's sort of a yellowish green. It's fairly pale yellow actually. And then in soda, you know, they're generally just a little bit cloudier. Kind of reminds me of Hiram Dam material. You know, it's okay. It generally makes the glaze a little bit more matte, satin. And then when we add iron, you know, it kind of just makes everything pretty muddy. This is 4% iron. Yeah, not a big fan of that really. You can see, you know, it's starting to move up here. So yeah, there's that. John really liked this. It does have a nice feel to it, a kind of satiny feel. So I sieved them, but I believe that the black spotting here is from the iron. It's 4% iron, and I did sieve it twice, but I think it's just not fully distributed. So there we go, there's a lime. Spodumene. This is a lithium flux. The results were really very similar to Nefsai. Yeah, not particularly great, frankly. I mean, at 50-50, it's like sort of a Shino. See if we can get focus on that, yeah. But not particularly attractive. And in soda, yeah, it's kind of a generic brown to grey, which I see quite a lot. When you add iron to it, yeah, also just not very nice. I mean, this is definitely gross. So yeah, will not be pursuing spodumene. Grolic tests. So I was aiming at kind of like maybe a slip that I could use in soda mostly, because some of my slips are Grolic based. But it turns out when you add Grolic to the Granite, it's pretty dull, frankly. So that wasn't a huge success. And yeah, not very good color response either, really. Quite dry. Now I did have 20% lime in with the Granite to try and help it flux a bit. And then I added 4% iron. So this is kind of interesting. The iron is acting as a flux and making the test much more interesting. I mean, here, like, we're basically back at the Celadon, which is a huge difference from up here, you know, just that little bit of iron. And then in soda, you know, it's kind of funky, kind of weird. Not a huge fan. Won't be pursuing this, but it was interesting. So in this test I had borax, and this is not really a normal glaze material, but it is a flux, and it makes for some pretty interesting effects. Even at 10% here, pretty interesting. John was telling me that this makes the glaze melt. It melts early, it fluxes early. So you get, this is with the iron added. With the iron, things really start to happen. We got kind of oil slick gets particularly oily down here where you get more added. And because the borax was kind of big, I couldn't sieve it. So that's why, like in the top here, that iron, that's a big spot of iron. But yeah, I think there's definitely potential here. The borax is like helping the glaze move, which is what we want to see, for like phase separation. So yeah, this was interesting. Definitely going to continue using some borax. In soda too, it was kind of cool, but not as interesting as the reduction ones. I added some soda ash to my tests here, and just adding the soda ash to the granite, not great in reduction or oxidation really. We got some weird bubbling. But then in the soda, it was kind of interesting. Like some of this, almost like shadowy shade, kind of reminds me of like underwater. I actually really like this. So I think there's some potential here for adding soda, and it's happening 7, 4, 8, so that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30%, 25 it's happening too. But yeah, like 30%, that's kind of an interesting effect. When we add iron to the tests, this almost looks kind of like carbon trappy Shino-esque, but not particularly attractive. And that same effect starts happening, but it's darker. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Splodgy, kind of looks like a disease. But yeah, I'm kind of into it. So anyway, more experimentation needed here, I think. Minspar tests. So Minspar is a soda feldspar, and I added it in 5% increments. You know, basically as we go along, we get towards a pretty grayed out glaze. And in soda, we get sort of browny grey. Not my favorite. And then we add iron, and yeah, they're all pretty flat and uninteresting, frankly. You know, even with a lot of soda, yeah, it's not great. So Minspar, not the one to add to my granite. Custer feldspar sets. So Custer feldspar is a potash feldspar, and when I add that to the granite, we get grey. Lots of grey, and in oxidation, kind of like tan. In soda, we got this kind of brownish grey, very similar to the Minspar, and not great. I mean, this is not what I'm going for really. And when you add iron, also just like pretty bland. So the granite does not want this to look fabulous. Strontium carbonate. This is quite similar to lime or wollastonite. The color is most similar to wollastonite, but it's perhaps a touch darker. It's nice, although I guess compared to wollastonite, it gets more matte a bit quicker. John said that it can be used sort of interchangeably for lime, but it tends to run in the soda a bit. It really is quite similar, and then with iron added down here, yeah, you're getting more drippy along this side. You know, it's not bad, but I think I would focus on using wollastonite. I'm just trying to use less materials in the studio. And nothing crazy happened, nothing particularly interesting. So I think wollastonite is a better choice. So the zinc oxide addition. In reduction, we get to kind of an interesting point that's like satiny grey, but it's got some gold in it. It's quite nice. Yeah, definitely more experimentation needed around that. It almost looks like kind of a dolomite glaze. It's really, really nice. And then these are sort of quite pale in oxidation, but nice surface. They're both not crazed, which is pretty remarkable. In soda, we just tend to go grey brown again, which is a bit unfortunate. But then we get some magic stuff happening in reduction with 4% iron added. Like, there's some really interesting stuff. John was telling me that zinc volatilizes really early in the firing. So I think this is like some phase separation stuff going on. And I like it. So I'm going to play around with this. All of these in the reduction came out really nicely. In oxidation, not really. The fast firing tended to, these bubbles didn't fully heal. And then in soda, yeah, it's just not as interesting. But some of these are just great. I'm definitely gonna, delve into them. Petalite. So this is a lithium-bearing mineral, flux, and it's quite similar to spodumene in the way it comes out. Grey in reduction. And then, kind of grey brown in soda. Not very attractive. And then we add iron to it. It doesn't really help matters. This is spectacularly, gruesomely awful. So yeah, I'm going to leave that one. No petalite test needed in the future. Magnesium carbonate. So starts off fairly normal, but then as we get to like 30, 40, 50%, we're getting some quite intense crawling. And I didn't know this, but I guess a lot of glazes that have that are intended to crawl have magnesium carbonate in them. Yeah, does it up in the soda too. Less so with the iron. I think that the iron kind of helps flux it out. I don't know. It doesn't crawl as much. You can see you're still getting the effect. But interestingly, so my oxidation kiln firing was quicker than the reduction. The reduction kind of it has a slower rise on the top end because it takes a while to gain heat in reduction. So you can see this test, like the crawling is kind of melted back. It's not as intense compared to the same test in that quicker oxidation firing. So if you want to get more crawling, I think you fire quicker. No soaking at the top. But yeah, I mean, I'm not intended to get this, but it's kind of interesting, like this sort of Rice Krispie-like texture. So yeah, at some point I might pursue that. It might be kind of interesting for a sculpture or something. So in this set of tests, I'm looking for a nice yellow glaze, especially in soda. And so I started with 3 base glazes. and this is kind of based on some previous tests. But so I did make some guesses, and I guessed sort of wrong. So I started with 50% granite, 10% bone ash, 30% dolomite, and then I did 3 sets. So the first one I added 10% lime, second 10% EPK clay, and then the third I added 10% Zercopax. So this is the base, the 3 bases. So this is the one with lime, and it's, you know, kind of a green solid on. Unfortunately, it ran quite a lot, like really quite a lot, because I only dip these to like there. So yeah, that's way drippy, and my lime tests just dripped everywhere. So then this one is with 10% EPK, and that did not do enough to hold it back. Similar glaze quality, and the glaze quality is pretty nice, but it's just, yeah, way too much flux. I definitely got my base recipe quite wrong. But instead of EPK or lime, this one had the Zercopax, and that is remarkably stable. It's still wanting to drip, but it's not. So the Zercopax was definitely like a really nice stabilizer. So I did this whole test where I added titanium and then 1%, 4% and 7% iron to each of these 3 sets. Now the lime ones are up here, and to be honest, yeah, it didn't go well. Like, I lost a lot of test tiles because they just broke. You can see all of these are basically broken because they, you know, I had to break them out because they dripped everywhere. And out of all the surfaces, I like the lime ones the least. They kind of, yeah, I don't know, they're drippy, but in a slightly kind of pitty, gross way. So not going to talk about them too much. And then the next ones with EPK, similarly not super exciting, and a lot of them broke. So I'm not even really going to talk about that. I threw a lot away because I was kind of mad that I'd made this huge miscalculation. But the Zercopax ones weren't too bad. So these ones were Zercopax in oxidation. And so the base, without any iron in oxidation, is this kind of like creamy, slightly green glaze. And in reduction, it's a little bit greener. This base was also in reduction. And so, yeah, I mean, the oxidation ones were less interesting to me than the reduction. You know, this is sort of yellow. You know, it's getting towards yellow. That's 836. That is, let's have a look. So that's got 10% titanium in the base. So, I mean, this is okay, but what really got me excited was the results in the soda kiln. And again, a lot of them all ran like hell, and it was unfortunate. But I did, once I took this out of the kiln, I was pretty excited. This is just the same base glaze, 831, as this, but in soda. So it's pretty remarkable. Like, the soda really is affecting that colour a lot. And I think it's mostly the dolomite in there. And the Zercopax helps the yellow too. But so in my test, I got quite a few shades that I'm pretty excited about. From 813, which is a yellow. This 831 is this one, which is actually one of the palest of them. But you can see it really is yellow. And that's not my favorite out of these. So I'm kind of excited about like some of this more warmer kind of orangey yellow. Yeah, I think there's definitely like, this is a nice color palette. Like, I'm really excited about these colors. I just have to get the fluxing under control. And this has got 7% iron added, and some titanium. But it's got a really nice feel, and it's a nice color. All of these have quite a nice feel, actually. They're sort of satiny matte. So yeah, there's definitely to be pursued. So I'm excited. At first, I was really disappointed because I made a pretty huge error on the the base glaze, but I'm pretty excited about where we're going. So yeah, watch this space.